She makes $380,000 a year. She drives a BMW. Her kids go to private school. Her family eats out almost every night of the week. From the outside, she has everything. But last month her water heater broke. The repair bill came to $4,500. And she panicked. Not because she was careless. Not because she was irresponsible. She panicked because she had no idea how she was going to come up with $4,500 without selling something, borrowing something, or quietly putting it on a credit card. This is not a story about someone being bad with money. This is a story about a trap. A trap so perfectly designed that the people inside it almost never realize they are trapped at all. And the more you earn, the harder it becomes to see. If you have ever made more money than you ever imagined you would and somehow still feel behind, stay with me. Because what I am about to show you explains everything. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you. And do not forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Here is a number that should stop you in your tracks. According to a Goldman Sachs report from 2025, 41% of Americans earning between $300,000 and $500,000 a year live paycheck to paycheck. 40% of those earning over $500,000 report the exact same thing. Read that again. 4 out of every 10 people making $500,000 annually feel they have no financial cushion. They earn more in a single month than many Americans earn in an entire year. Yet they wake up with the same financial anxiety as someone earning a fraction of their salary. Think about what that actually means. The person lying awake worrying about rent and the person lying awake worrying about their mortgage on a home worth $1.2 million are experiencing the same emotional state. The same tight chest. The same mental math at 2 in the morning. The same quiet fear that one unexpected expense could unravel everything. Just with different zip codes. This is what researchers now call the high-income poverty trap. And it is not an edge case. It is not a rare exception. It is a widespread, documented, and deeply misunderstood pattern affecting millions of Americans who never saw it coming. Most people carry a deeply held belief that income solves financial problems. Hit 6 figures and the stress disappears. Cross 200,000 and you are set for life. Pass 500,000 and money becomes irrelevant. The data tells a completely different story. The trap does not care how much you make. It only cares about one thing. How much you keep. And most high earners, despite every advantage, keep almost nothing. Over the next few minutes I am going to show you exactly how this trap works. Who falls into it and why. How to know if you are already caught inside it without realizing it. And most importantly, what the people who actually build wealth do differently. Not in theory. In practice. Because the gap between earning well and building wealth is not about intelligence. It is not about discipline. It is not about luck. It is about a set of invisible decisions most people never stop to examine. Let us start with the one decision that starts the whole cycle. When your income increases, something almost automatic happens inside you. You start spending more. Not recklessly. Not dramatically. Quietly. Gradually. Reasonably. The $15 lunch becomes a $25 lunch. The Honda becomes a BMW. The adequate apartment becomes a house with a guest room that nobody ever uses. Each individual upgrade feels completely justified. You earned it. You can afford it. You deserve it. And technically, the math works. But here is what nobody tells you. The upgrades compound. The savings stay flat. This is called lifestyle inflation. And it is the engine that powers the trap. Researchers describe this using a term called the hedonic treadmill. Imagine a treadmill programmed to increase its speed by 10% every single time you hit your stride. You feel like you are moving forward. You feel like you are making progress. But the scenery outside the window never changes. You are just running faster to stay in the same place. Every raise brings a new normal. Every promotion brings new expectations. And once a luxury becomes routine, removing it does not feel like returning to normal. It feels like punishment. That psychological shift is exactly what makes the trap so powerful. And then social comparison enters the picture. The phenomenon researchers call lifestyle creep has always existed. But something changed in the last decade. Social media made everyone else's life visible in real time. The vacations. The renovations. The new car in the driveway. A 2025 Goldman Sachs report specifically named keeping up with the Joneses as a primary driver of paycheck to paycheck living among high earners. People earning in the top 5% of all American incomes feel financially inadequate. Because they are comparing themselves to the top 1%. Or worse, to a carefully edited social media version of someone who might be even more financially leveraged than they are. Think about your last 3 raises. Close your eyes and actually think about it. Where did that money go? Not where should it have gone. Where did it actually go? If you cannot answer that immediately, this video is for you. The comparison is no longer just against your neighbors. It is against every person on every platform filtered and curated to show only the highlights. And your brain responds to that information the same way it responds to a real social threat. By spending to keep up. By upgrading to belong. By using money to signal that you have arrived. Even when you cannot actually afford to send that signal. Here is what makes this pattern especially difficult to see from the inside. None of the individual spending decisions feel wrong. The private school genuinely provides a good education. The bigger house genuinely has more space. The leased BMW genuinely is a more comfortable drive. Each decision is defensible on its own. The problem is not any single decision. The problem is the sum of all of them together, quietly consuming every dollar that could have been building your future. Most people trapped in the high-income poverty trap never consciously chose it. They accumulated expenses one reasonable decision at a time until the entire income was committed before it ever arrived. Let us look at the actual numbers. According to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, the United States personal savings rate stood at 3.6% in December 2025. That means the average American is saving approximately $3.60 of every $100 they earn. $3.60. During the pandemic peak in April 2020, the savings rate hit 33.8%. Stimulus checks arrived. Spending stopped. And Americans accidentally discovered what building financial security actually felt like. That money is gone now. And the savings rate has collapsed back down to near historic lows. 3.6% is not a savings strategy. It is financial survival with a nice address. Here is the math that should change the way you think about every paycheck from this point forward. Someone earning $300,000 who saves 5% accumulates $15,000 each year. Someone earning the exact same $300,000 who saves 30% accumulates $90,000 each year. At 7% average investment returns over 20 years, the 5% saver ends up with approximately $650,000. The 30% saver ends up with approximately $4 million. The difference is $3,300,000. Not because one person earned more. Because one person kept more. That is not a small gap. That is a dynasty. And that is the true cost of the high-income poverty trap paid out over 2 decades. Now let us talk about the invisible mortgage that most high earners are quietly paying every single month. According to 2025 data, high-income households earning over $100,000 carried an average credit card balance of $12,760. 36% of credit card holders earning $100,000 or more carry a balance from month to month. Total U.S. credit card debt reached $1.277 trillion in the fourth quarter of 2025. The highest balance ever recorded since tracking began in 1999. Up 66% since the pandemic lows of early 2021. 61% of Americans carrying credit card debt have been carrying it for at least a year. Debt is no longer an emergency for high earners. It has become a permanent feature of their lifestyle. And here is the layer that makes this even more complicated for certain earners. In San Francisco, residents say you need $4.4 million to be considered wealthy. In Southern California, $3.4 million. In New York, $2.9 million. Someone earning $350,000 in Manhattan is not living the same financial life as someone earning the same salary in Kansas City. The coastal income advantage often cancels out completely once you factor in housing, state taxes, and the baseline cost of simply existing in those cities. They are earning coastal salaries and paying coastal prices. The income sounds impressive. The financial reality is far more fragile. And the psychological pressure of those environments accelerates every pattern we have already discussed. Here is where psychology completely takes over. When you earn $400,000 but have a net worth of $300,000, you do not feel wealthy. You feel behind. 63% of respondents in a 2025 Schwab survey said it feels like it takes more money to be wealthy today compared to last year. The goalposts keep moving. Someone achieves a net worth of $500,000 and looks up to see that comfortable now requires $839,000. They reach $1 million and discover that wealthy now means $2.3 million. No amount ever feels like enough because the definition of enough keeps changing. The hedonic treadmill does not just affect spending. It affects the entire way you measure your own financial life. Now here is where most videos stop. They show you the problem. They walk you through the statistics. They leave you feeling vaguely unsettled and slightly guilty about your last Amazon order. I am not going to do that. Because fear is not what changes behavior. Understanding does. What I want to show you in the next section is the exact mindset difference between high earners who are quietly building generational wealth and those who will wake up at 60 wondering where all the money went. And I promise you it has nothing to do with budgeting apps. It has nothing to do with giving up your coffee. It has everything to do with one fundamental question most people never stop to ask themselves. Let us get into it. The research on people who actually build wealth reveals something that genuinely surprises people the first time they hear it. Most real millionaires do not look like millionaires. They live in average neighborhoods. They drive older cars. They rarely display their wealth. A 2025 Empower study showed that over 62% of everyday millionaires still budget, still shop for deals, and still avoid extravagant lifestyles even after crossing the $1 million threshold. The typical millionaire has rarely spent more than $399 on a single article of clothing. About 60% live in homes worth less than $500,000. Warren Buffett still lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. The people who actually accumulate wealth behave nothing like the people who appear wealthy. The authors of The Millionaire Next Door created two very useful categories. Pause, prodigious accumulators of wealth. And UAWs, under-accumulators of wealth. A $50,000 a year janitor can be more of a PAW than a $700,000 a year doctor. The spending habits determine the category. Not the income level. Here is their formula. Multiply your age by your pre-tax annual household income, then divide by 10. That number is what your net worth should be right now. A 50-year-old earning $250,000 should have approximately $1.25 million in net worth. Most high earners fail this test dramatically. Where do you fall? The automation principle is where real wealth building begins. Saving what is left after spending does not work. There is never anything left. Spending what is left after saving does work. Every time. Someone earning $400,000 who automates $120,000 annually into investments will accumulate significant wealth regardless of how they spend the remaining $280,000. They will still live well. They will just live less lavishly than someone earning the same amount and saving nothing. And 20 years from now the difference between those two people is not a lifestyle choice. It is a dynasty versus a memory. Selective frugality is the habit that separates wealth builders from high earners caught in the trap. Real wealth builders do not spend less on everything. They spend ruthlessly on what genuinely matters to them and cut everything else without guilt. About 44% of millionaires prioritize experiences over luxury goods, but they are deeply selective about which experiences matter. They spend on what they value. They eliminate what they do not. The difference between that and lifestyle inflation is intention. Lifestyle inflation is automatic. Selective frugality is deliberate. One happens to you. The other is chosen by you. The timeline of real wealth building matters enormously. 79% of millionaires in America are completely self-made with no inheritance. Only 31% ever averaged $100,000 or more annually over their careers. Many built their wealth on modest incomes through consistent behavior over long periods of time. 73% of millionaires never once carried a credit card balance. The average millionaire worked, saved, and invested for 28 years before crossing the $1 million threshold. Most did not reach it until around age 49. The path was gradual and quiet and completely unsexy. But it worked. Every single time. And here is the most important thing I want you to understand before we close. The high-income poverty trap costs something that money cannot buy back. Someone earning $300,000 who saves nothing for 15 years has not just lost money. They have lost time. The most valuable compounding years. Even if they start saving later, they have lost something that can never be recovered. Time in the market is the one asset that cannot be repurchased at any price. The moment to start is never later. It is always now. The escape route exists, but it requires one uncomfortable question. What is all of this spending actually for? The doctor making $380,000 could save $100,000 annually if she chose to. She earns enough. She just spends enough to prevent it. Choosing differently means accepting that the BMW can be a Honda. That private school might not be necessary. That restaurants every night serve convenience more than they serve nutrition. That the house with guest rooms mostly impresses people who do not matter. These are not judgments. They are trade-offs made visible. The high-income poverty trap is not about deprivation. It is about intention. And most people trapped inside it never consciously chose their spending patterns. They accumulated expenses gradually, one reasonable decision at a time, until the entire income was committed before it ever arrived. The trap is real. Breaking it is possible. But it requires admitting one thing most high earners never want to say out loud. More money was never the answer. What you do with money has always been the only answer that ever mattered. 77% of Americans do not feel financially comfortable regardless of what they earn. 40% of those making $500,000 live paycheck to paycheck. Total credit card debt hit all-time highs while incomes remained near record levels. The evidence is overwhelming. Income alone does not solve financial problems. Only intentional choices about what portion of income to keep rather than spend create the security that most people assume high incomes automatically provide. If this video changed the way you think about your income and your future, share it with one person you think needs to hear it today. And drop in the comments, are you a PAW or a UAW right now? Be honest. No judgment here. I read every single one. And I will see you in the next video.